In this video, I'm going to quickly show you how to dynamically carve space between competing tracks in a mix. And the reason I'm doing this is that the last video I posted got a huge response, lots of questions and comments, so there's loads of videos I want to make to follow it up, but many people asked me about this technique, so I thought I'd just elaborate. Now what I'm going to do is just first show you how to actually use the technique with free or premium plugins, and then afterwards we can talk about where you might or might not want to use this and get into the theory. But let's just start by actually showing you how quick and easy this is to set up. Of course, this works in every single DAW. They all have the same functions. And I'm going to be showing this with Pro Q3, but also a free alternative called Nova, which I've left a link to in the description down below. Now, the only thing you need to do this technique is identify any two channels that you think are clashing. This is entirely subjective. Could be kick and bass, guitars, keys. In this case, I have a pad atmosphere like this, and this lead here. In this region here, there's just a little bit of an overlap. So to do this technique, you just have to put one of these two dynamic EQs on one channel, and then we're going to cut away some frequencies based on the input from the other channel. So it's going to listen to where the clashes are and apply it right there. It's actually a lot more simple than it sounds. So from one channel to the other, we're just going to create a sidechain. So in this case, I'm going to sidechain the lead to the atmosphere channel. This is going to send all the audio information, but it's not going to send any of the sound. Then on the channel that we're going to EQ, we just make sure we have one of these dynamic EQs loaded. So initially, you can see the pad, but if I change the analyzer and show the sidechain inputs, this red channel is the lead. So around the fundamental, let's say, just for the sake of an example, we're going to set up this dynamic EQ. So I'm going to use the red band. And now this looks okay, but if I turn off the lead channel, you can see this EQ is still reacting to the pad, which is not quite what we wanted to do. So if I press this button here, turn the lead channel back on, and make sure that I've pressed this, now this EQ is listening to the lead, and it's applying EQ to the pad based on what the lead is doing. So if I turn the lead off, the pad remains completely uninterrupted and has its full frequency range, but if the lead is playing, a little bit of EQ can be applied, and of course you could apply as many bands of this as you want. A little bit of troubleshooting for FL Studio is you might have to go into this cog up here, go to the processing, and make sure that you've selected the lead as the sidechain input. Sometimes that doesn't link across automatically. So that's how to do it in Pro Q3, but let's do it in Nova, the free alternative. So again, you have to make sure that you've set up the sidechain input in the settings, turning on the external sidechain input here, and you can change the display to show the input pad or the lead here. All you do is select one of these bands, you turn on the threshold, and this way, and this one you can actually see, you get really tight control over the threshold ratio and even the attack and release of this band. So this again is listening to the lead and applying compression to the pad atmosphere based on what the lead is doing, which is just a really neat but smart and simple trick. And honestly, it eliminates the need for a lot of sort of track spacing and EQ carving type plugins where you're trying to create space between different tracks, because this way you can just selectively choose what you actually want to do. So that's the technique out of the way, but let's talk a little bit about where and why you might want to do this. Now, the reason I haven't actually had too many before and after examples in this video is that my example doesn't really matter. It sort of just depends on what you want to apply this to and whether it sounds good to you. This concept of frequency clashing or masking is a little bit difficult because it doesn't really matter what clashes or what doesn't, because this is all subjective. There are some areas of music where it's right or wrong, something's in the right key or in the wrong key, you're hitting the wrong note or your hi-hats are out of time. There's some things that are a little bit objective. This is one of those subjective things where it just matters if it sounds good to you. So if you're, say, carving some frequencies away from a bass at the same time as a kick drum, some people are going to say, that's absolutely crazy, why don't you just have them work around each other in the arrangement? And other people would say, no, it's fine, just sidechain it a ton. I do think in general it's better to go back to the arrangement, pick your sounds well, sound design them well, make things work around each other in the arrangement first before employing things like this to fix them in the mix. But it's such a cool and simple technique. In fact, I said we were done with the sort of tutorial section, but even just in this little production I put together, I'll show you this. I created a problem because the drums sound like this. Which is quite nice. But the bass line does this, which is exactly when the kick hits. And they totally step on each other, so that's the sort of thing where, in that case, I either need to pick a kick that's maybe a bit smaller or has a bit less low end and gets out of the way of the bass, or I could keep that drum groove, because I actually really like those drums, and maybe use a sustained bass, like a Reese bass, and just kind of do something that actually makes my life a lot more easy in the mix, instead of having this plucky kick and this plucky bass sort of just completely stepping on each other. And that's a case where I'd say, nah, this technique isn't really going to help. I should just go back to the arrangement and actually make the song sound good instead of relying on stuff like this. Anyway, I also want to say a big thank you for the response to the last video I posted, because there's just so many conversations opened up there. There's still loads that I need to get to and reply to, but I can see there's loads of things people want me to elaborate on in future videos, so I'm going to be working on all of those very soon, especially the 5-click rule that I mentioned. Loads of people were curious to see how I'm automating loads of different areas of my workflows. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you got a bunch of use out of this technique, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.